Matt Bernie, you're taking a quick look at some stakes action from Del Mar on Sunday afternoon. Race number 8 is the $100,000 Cary Grant Stakes. These are Cal breds going 7/8 of a mile. Before we dive into the field, I'd encourage you to head on over to drf.com/bet, where you can get all the latest details and offers for new DRF Bet sign-up members. Again, drf.com/bet is the address. Let's take a look at this field. Again, they're traveling 7/8 of a mile on the main track. They're Cal breds, 3-year-olds and up. It's an interesting field that, truth be told, pace makes the race in any race, but I think it could especially make a big difference in a spot like this. We're going to start down on the inside with the number 1, Tough But Nice. Goes out for Hector Palma, most recently a gate-to-wire winner, and it was over what appears to be, at face value, is probably not a great group, but then when you take a deeper look, you can go into Formulator and check it out. The 7th place finisher was the next out winner with a 92 Beyer, so clearly there was some ability in that field. And more importantly, take a look at this Timeform US pace projector. You can see they have the number 1 horse, Tough But Nice, out there by his lonesome on the lead, and you see that blue bar indicating a slow pace. That could really, really help a horse like this, the number 1, Tough But Nice. I picked him second in here. I think he's a major win threat to possibly wire this field. He has had success at Del Mar in the past. I do wonder a little bit from a class standpoint, but he's going to have a major tactical advantage, as that pace projector would suggest. Number 2 horse is Touching Rainbows. To be frank, I've never really understood the fascination with Touching Rainbows. I think he's a talented horse. There's no question about that. He's run a number of Beyer speed figures in the 95 to 99 range throughout his career. Most recently, and actually his last 2 starts, they tried him on the grass, once in the 80D going down the hill at Santa Anita, another one in the Green Flash here at Del Mar going 5/8 of a mile. Neither of those were awesome. The run 2 starts back, to be fair, he did come with a nice sort of belated finish. I feel like the main track is where he's done his best work. He's 6 of 10 lifetime on the fast main strip. I think he fits in with a group like this. They've tried to make him a graded stakes type, and it just hasn't panned out. I think he fits in here very well. Again, admittedly, not a huge fan of this horse, but at the same time, you have to acknowledge the fact that he's a legitimate win threat in a spot like this. Number 3, Edwards Going Left. You want to talk about being thrown to the wolves in a couple of his most recent starts. How about the most recent run, the Santa Anita Sprint Championship? It's a Grade 1 race, and you look at it and say, okay, well, Grade 1, he's going to be getting class relief. Also factor in that he ran into likely the Eclipse Award winner for sprinters for males in Roy H., who came back to win the Breeders' Cup Sprint for the 2nd year in a row with a 111 Beyer speed figure. So don't hold that race against him. 2 starts back, they tried the E.B. Johnston at Los Alamitos, which is a Calbred race, and you may look at that and say, ooh, disappointing effort there. And when you look at the stretch run of that race, it was not pretty for any of the top 3. Let's call a spade. But that was at a distance that Edwards Going Left probably doesn't want. He wants to go shorter than that mile distance going 2 turns. The Bing Crosby, 3 starts back. He ran just fine that day, but again, against much tougher horses. Ransom the Moon, Roy H., and you see Touching Rainbows, who was only ahead of Edwards Going Left. If you get back to his form from earlier this year and at the end of 2017, he's a major player in here. This is the first, I personally believe, first reasonable spot for him to be placed in basically 7-8 months, where he has a legitimate chance to win. I thought the 2 Grade 1 tries, he acquitted himself just fine. He's just not quite of that level, and that run 2 starts back, I'm drawing a line through it. And he didn't run poorly that day. That's not really what he wants. If you get back to that Cal Cup sprint from back in January, he's a major player in here, and he's had success at Del Mar. Edwards Going Left makes all the sense in the world. Number 4, Solid Wager for Peter Miller. This is a horse he's going to be doing his best running from well off the pace, so that pace projector could certainly compromise his chances. I think there's a scenario where he can come along and pick up some pieces. Most recently, he was well beaten second in here by about 3 1/4 lengths, but the horse that won Awesome Anywhere, he returned and won next out with a 100 Beyer. So the form of that race has held up, but again, there was a pretty significant gap between he and the winner that day. I feel like he's a mid to high 80s type of horse at this point. This distance is really right in his wheelhouse, 4 for 9, overall at the distance of 7/8, but I think he's probably just going to be one of those horses that you're best used underneath as opposed to using him on top. Number 5 is Brando the Bartender for Craig Delassie. A winner most recently of the California Flag Handicap that was at Santa Anita going 5/8 of a mile on the grass. One of their new distance, the new shorter configuration. And he ran just fine that day. Richard's boy, a little bit disappointing. He came back and disappointed in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. The difficult thing to analyze with Brando the Bartender, and I don't want to say analyze, but to just kind of call a spade, take a look at this formulator fact. It's not particularly positive. The past 3 years, turf to dirt runners for Delassie, 0 for 24, and only 6 of them have hit the board. This horse has never run on a fast main track. He has tried the main track twice on wet surfaces. He's 0 for 2. He has made his hay on turf. I don't love his chances in a spot like this trying dirt against some pretty salty runners. The number 6 is Minosa, another Hector Palmer runner. Most recently ran in that same race that Tough But Nice wired the field in. Again, I made mention the 7th place finisher was the next out winner with a 92. You get Gary Stevens aboard here. I just look and see what this horse has done in his overall body of work. Plain and simple, on paper, he's just too slow to be competitive in a spot like this. But we've seen crazier things happen. Number 7 is Shades of Victory. Shades of Victory won that race 2 starts back. The E.B. Johnson I spoke of earlier when we saw a horse like Edwards going left, trying 2 turns at Los Alamitos. It was a great ride from Martin Pedrosa. Send out of there. You're 80-1. Try to hang on and get a piece of this thing. Well, not only did they get a piece, but he actually stuck around and won the entire thing because you had a horse like B Squared who just hung and never went by, and you had a horse like Edwards going left who was really getting a little bit tired at the end of that race. Then they went on and tried the Awesome again with Shades of Victory, and realistically, he probably should have been 80-1 that day. Shocking he was 80-1 at Los Alamitos, but not 80-1, and the Grade 1 Awesome again. He's just not quite of that caliber. He was forwardly placed. He got cooked, finished up the track. You see Accelerate's name in there. He is going to be at least one of the finalists for Horse of the Year. He won the Breeders' Cup Classic coming out of that race. This is going to be a slight sort of class drop for Shades of Victory, but at the end of the day, I don't think this is really what he is. And even draw a line through the Los Alamitos race. He doesn't have a race on his page fast enough to truly be competitive in here. Number 8 is Ann Arbor Eddie. I've always been a fan of Ann Arbor Eddie. I think this is a really talented little horse. He's a son of Square Eddie. He's a 4-year-old gelding. They can continue to churn out checks with him. But this move right here, to me, is not a positive one. And you can see this formulator fact sort of backs that up for Doug O'Neill. Past 5 years, turf to dirt, non-graded stakes races, which are restricted to state bred or restricted races. 1 for 20. 7 in the money with a 33-cent ROI. I do think he's going to come with a fair account of himself. I just don't really believe that he is truly a win threat in a spot like this. I will wait again until we get back to Santa Anita, going down the hill. I think that's where he does his best running. I think Ann Arbor Eddie is a nice little horse, but I think this isn't necessarily his bread and butter. And the number 9 is Grecian Fire for Jerry Hollendorfer. This is a horse who I personally think he is slightly better on synthetic and turf surfaces as opposed to the main track. This turn back in distance, you're going to have to really hope for a barbecue because he's a horse in route races with much slower paces that does his running from well off of it. In a race like this, albeit with that blue bar and that slower pace according to the pace projector, he's still going to be way out of it in a spot like this. It's going to be up to Bejarano. I'm sure they're going to take back and just try to produce that one run. He's another one to me, best used underneath if at all. It's a fun race at Del Mar on Sunday. It's the featured event. Let's take a look and see where I ultimately landed in the $100,000 Cary Grant. I'm going with Edwards going left. Like I said, I think this is the first time in a number of months that he has had a legitimate chance to get the job done. Those 2 grade 1s, most recently in 3 starts back, not holding those against him. He ran just fine, but he's not quite of that caliber. 2 starts back, 2 turns, not what he wants. Draw a line through that. The triple bend, clearly something went wrong because he was gone for a few months after that. Prior to that, you've got that Cal Cup Sprint. I think that's really the race that you want to use as sort of the barometer for this horse. I think he fits in here very well. I'm going to go with Edwards going left. 3-1-2-8 for me in the 8th at Del Mar on Sunday. If you're playing the Cary Grant or any of the other races from the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club on Sunday, you should be playing with DRF Bets. Head on over to drf.com/bet. You get all the latest as far as details and offers are concerned for new DRF Bets sign-up members. Scheduled post time for the $100,000 Cary Grant Stakes at Del Mar on Sunday, 4 o'clock Pacific. Best of luck.